We've been talking about this for a couple weeks, and we know we wanted to get onto it. So, were you able to see the Tale of Two Dirties, ODB'S documentary?
I was.
Tell me, like, what's your first reaction to the doc?
So I'm gonna say, like, overarching, I enjoyed the doc because it was informative.
Yeah,
I like the informative docs. Now, obviously, Dirty's been, gone for 20 years, right? This is technically the anniversary since 04.
Which is crazy.
Right, time flying. So a lot of the information we kind of knew. I just think we got different perspectives on it.
Right.
So I enjoyed it. A&E is the company that funded the doc. I'm not too sure. You got to tell me if they are big in the doc world.
Yeah, they're starting to do a lot of docs. They got a Bobby Brown one.
Yeah.
They got a couple that are out there about artists. So that's their... Because they always were on biography. That 100%. Was their series.
Yeah.
So now they're starting to get really into the artists.
Yeah, I like the way that it was. It laid out. It kind of went back and forth in regards to Dirty, but it stayed consistent throughout. One thing I'll say first. Listen, they know what they're doing because they had that locked up. Like normally, you could find anything you want, on the internet, in the ether.
Yeah. It was hard to find.
This one was only in one place, only on the tube. So, kudos to them for kind of being able to protect their investment. It was a good length, hour and 25 minutes, I believe. So it wasn't too long, kept you engaged for the most part. But I guess some of the things that stood out for me, and I guess we can go back and forth. One of the major things, I guess, based off what we've heard in the past was, ODB's wife and his kids actually, having their thoughts and being able to speak on their relationship with their father and husband, right?
And I thought about that.
Yeah.
It was great that they gave the wife and the kids a platform, but Dirty is one of the only artists that really brought his family in on his celebrity, his star.
He's special, guy. Special, man.
The first time you seen Dirty on MTV, he had his wife and kids in the limo with him. So he showed like, yo, I'm a family man. Like, this is what I do.
Yeah.
Even though I'm Dirt McGirt, ODB, my family's with me.
No, and you got to appreciate that. And I think that's part of the undertones of the doc, and you can kind of see how certain things, and sorry, there will be spoiler alerts, but we're still going to, I'm still going to co-sign for you guys to go and watch this if you're a hip-hop fan, if you're a Wu-Tang fan.
It's a must-watch.
It's definitely a must-watch. But, some of the other things that kind of stood out to me as well was the influence that the 5% Nation had on him, in regards to the mathematics and him.
A-Son Unique.
Yeah, switching his name, right? So he dove into the culture. I love that it really showed, the discipline that he had early on, which you have to be successful, and the brotherhood.
You got to study your 120. You got to do your lessons.
Right.
So it's like you need to know. We seen it in the show where people will test you on it. Like,
what's the math today? Right? What's the mathematics? Yeah.
So it's like. And they said he was supreme with it, like he knew his stuff.
Top level intellect.
Yeah.
Right? So, again, that's one of those things that you have to be to get to a certain level, regardless of what, people perceive on the outside or how things have progressed. Like, you have to be a certain type of intellect to be successful in any walk of life. So, that was definitely.
Exactly. And you kind of see his genius.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
The documentary shows his genius because he showed who he knew who he wanted to be.
Yeah. Called his shot. He called his shot and went and got it.
He knew exactly what he wanted to be portrayed as.
Yeah.
He knew what artist he wanted to be, and he knew his lane. He knew, I'm going to be ODB.
Yeah.
There's no father to my style.
Yeah.
Some of those verses he gave us were incredible, and I don't think they went back over his music enough.
That's one thing for sure, and I love how they highlighted and really focused a lot on his impact and influence on the Wu-Tang Clan itself. Like, he's a founding member of the Wu-Tang Clan.
Like, founding.
Yeah.
He was in All In Together now with the RZA and RZA.
Exactly.
Previously, like, they already had a life as artists. Remember, RZA and RZA had a deal
100%.
before the Wu. Then were able to come back and bring their cousin.
But they also showed his importance as well because he was the first one out the gate after the inaugural album. Right, so that's a lot of pressure, and that's like, you know, if and I was saying to you in the meeting that, right, you're not going to take chances on the first one out. Like the first one out is almost a no brainer. It's sure proof.
He's got to go.
Yeah.
He's got to go because he has to set the tone for us all.
And he did. He did.
And you know what's crazy? Like when I was younger,
I
was heavily influenced by my brother because he's 9 years older, and he wasn't big on gimmicks in rap.
Got it.
Because it was to keep it real.
Yeah.
But I think ODB was so unique.
Yeah.
And he knew that.
But here's the thing, and my favorite Wu-Tang song, like as a collective, especially growing up with Mystery of Chess Boxing, and the one thing that you can't take away from even the gimmick side is his verses. Like he had some rap verses that stood the test of time, and that stood out on those tracks at the time when they dropped. Right, so again, like here I go, deep tight flow. Jacques Cousteau can't even like
this low.
You know what I mean? Like he's had some real memorable stuff.
It was good seeing. Okay, so there was a lot of people in the documentary. Funk Flex gets a bad rap just from rap now. But it was good seeing him in this light talking about how Dirty uses voice as an instrument.
Absolutely, yeah.
And not just the raps he was saying, but the flows and the harmonies and everything he carried. Because it wasn't just about rap. He was singing on the record.
Yeah, he was filling in the spaces. Like he was doing things that were ahead of his time.
Exactly.
When it came to music.
And when you looked at the documentary, you could see that ODB was ahead of his time. He did the Kanye West before the Kanye West.
Just to speak on that, like, what are you specifically talking about?
I'm talking about one of the biggest hip hop moments that we've ever seen in the culture when he went up during an award show.
98, the Grammys in 98.
Exactly, the Grammys when Wu-Tang Forever should have won awards.
Yeah,
they weren't given the awards they should have won, and he went up and just said, "Yo."
And again, back then, hip hop wasn't even televised.
Nah.
The awards were televised at the time, right? So,
like, the man just walked up, kissed Erykah Badu, took the mic, and said what he needed to say. He said, "Yo, Wu-Tang is for the children."
Yo,
is that not one of the biggest hip hop quotables of all time?
Of all time, yeah. Listen, people are still referencing it. Nas has a song about it like 2 years ago. Like, so the impact is there. You know, obviously the highs and the lows, you know, some of the lows were obviously that MTV interview where he did pull up, you know, in the limo with the family.
I think he wasn't.
And the whole food stamps debacle in that sense, right?
My thing with that is, and I remember it, but I don't remember it having such a ricochet effect.
Yeah, that was new to me as well.
Like, I remember him hopping in the limo with his family, going to the check cashing, counting the food stamps, and being out.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize he was so nervous after that. Like, it was like he probably calculated the risk, but you don't know that New York City, the feds, everybody is watching you and saying, "Yo, we might take your kids off the strength of what you just did because you're abusing the system."
Bro, and it's funny in that sense. Well, I wouldn't say it's funny, but you know, the fact after you see the paranoia start to take over. Right. He's constantly talking about being watched and being followed and the government being on him. So you kind of see the spiral down, but I feel for him because his story is so happy and sad at the same time. Like it would be a perfect movie. Like if they were to redo this at some point,
Wu-Tang
right?
As a movie?
No, even just ODB,
just his story
as a movie because you see him have that like meteoric rise, and then he's all of a sudden on a song with the biggest pop star in the world, Mariah Carey, who already has the biggest pop song on the planet in fantasy, throws him on it, and now it's doing double the numbers than the original song did.
But they never even got into Ghetto Superstar, which was
that whole story with Pras.
Was another major hit. I think takeaways from the documentary. Not enough Wu members in there.
So that stood out for sure.
Ray and Ghost.
That stood out for sure.
I would have loved to see his cousins. I would have loved to see how the Jizzle would have spoke on it. I would have loved to see how RZA had to speak on it.
But what I guess I didn't like as much for the fact that there was no new Wu other than Ray and Ghost. Like all the old Wu footage was from footage we've already seen.
Yeah.
RZA already speak on, and Jizza already speak on, and even the Jizza, the one time we see him in there, it's from footage from like '92.
Saying like
so it's I'd love to hear what, or even Method Man, but let's stop there for a second because. The story is so deep, especially with the relationship with his brothers, right? And RZA speaks to it in the funeral in regards to, when people, I guess I'm going to paraphrase it, but when people tell you that they need help, believe them and, and always kind of look out for your family. But there was, I guess, definitely a disconnect with ODB and the Wu at some point. I don't think they identified exactly when it kind of got fractured, that relationship, but it was something, and I don't know if it's when he went to jail. Yeah, when he went to jail. Now, obviously, we haven't got to it yet. The second half, almost the whole second half of that documentary does lean into the drug use portion of his career and how it ultimately was the determining factor, towards the end of his career, his death, all his relationships. That's the really sad part because for those that have dealt with friends or family with drug addiction or drug problems, it's kind of hard and tough to look at somebody that you knew that was so vibrant and imagine ODB, this immaculate talent, be a shell of themselves. Right. Yeah. And that's the part of it. And I was saying it to you earlier where I think one of the most touching parts of the documentary was his old manager, where she heard that he came out of jail. And she ran to the studio that he was at because she was overjoyed to see him. And he walks right past her like they've never met before. And you could just feel the pain in her voice, having to even just recreate the story more or less, even being there, right?
So it was kind of dark when it went into...
and the images, man.
There was a lady that was from his label. She was the VP of marketing.
Yeah.
And she used the word self-sabotage.
Yeah. I think that's out of pocket, though,
even Dante Ross talking about it and talking about what could have been and what really did
I didn't like her tone very much, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, it was a hard documentary to watch because normally you just want to see the greatness of people and you don't want to get into that negative light about them. RIP to ODB.
Absolutely.
Man.
The one thing I do want to touch on, I think two more things that I do want to touch on just before we move off it is the Rockefeller, or specifically Dame Dash.
They demonized the Dash.
But here's the thing though. I don't totally wrong it because it does come off in the way that they presented it like slimy, dog. It came off slimy, it came off insensitive, it came off super opportunistic.
Right.
Like he was just a commodity and not a real human being.
You just gave him $1 million and his family saying we didn't see a penny of it.
With a drug addiction.
He didn't even know where that money went. like $1 million is still a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
Regardless what you say.
Yeah.
So,
at any time in life, right? And
the only little bit of like empathy he showed was saying, I'm sorry that an artist died under my watch. But normally when Dame talks about artists, when Dame talks about artists, it's more a family.
Yeah,
this didn't feel like that.
It seemed like a commodity that we were gonna like a digital currency that we're gonna invest in, we're gonna make something off of, and if we don't make any money off it, then it is what it is. But if we do, then we win, right? So
he said he wanted to be in the Wu-Tang business.
Yeah.
So it felt like he seen an opportunity, he grabbed it.
Yeah.
And his manager, like
that's the other thing I was gonna say. 23-year-old manager at the time, bro.
And it's like RZA normally had a hand. If you watch the series that they had on Hulu. RZA made sure he signed to Elektra because that was the best deal for him.
Yeah.
Like ODB was vexed because he wanted to be on Def Jam so bad. That was his dream.
It was the hip hop
label.
RZA
said, "Nah.
Yeah.
You're gonna go to Elektra. You're gonna get your masters back. They're gonna take care of you. So in 30 years, you'll be protected. You're not gonna be like these other artists."
Yeah. Smart business.
I don't know when that happened, where there was the switch, but I think a lot of Dirty's problem was that. I don't want to be here with these guys because they don't have me like that.
Yeah, that's the part that I'm trying to still put together is when that happened, right? Because even him coming out of jail, you're telling me that none of the Wu members had had contact to him in jail that Dame could slide in, pick him up and have a press conference. Like, you see ODB's face, he was totally shocked. He didn't know what was happening.
Carey in the mix
right there, right? Like,
and she's like, he didn't even know what was going on.
So right?
She felt away.
How does the Wu let him slide in? So that means it was fractured from before that. Like, he wasn't even being.
But ODB had been going through a lot of controversy. Yeah. Although one of the shining moments was them talking about him saving the girl that got hit by the car.
Yeah, I remember that
really
too.
Appreciate
that.
I do. But they talked about him being shot a few times, him going to jail for wearing a vest, protecting himself, him
burning himself to get out of jail to go to the mental institution.
So do you know how crazy that is, son?
Bro, setting yourself on fire.
That's crazy.
So, listen, I appreciated it. I felt like I learned something. I felt like it actually brought something to my life. I think when you're able to pull your own life lessons from things that you're able to watch or read or whatever the case is, it's always beneficial. And, I co-sign everybody to go watch it, so please go do so. It's an amazing doc. I would love to hear, again, I think I was saying this before, what other Wu members think about it. I'm very interested in that. But again, the name of the doc, it's A&E doc. It's Tale of Two Dirties. I enjoyed it.